Hello, welcome to the channel. Let's go to today's story. My wife, to me, was someone I considered highly respectable and traditionalist. She worked intensely and had only had one boyfriend before we met. We were married when she was 22 and I was 25. While we were together, I never would have thought our union would come to an end, but our marriage only lasted 3 short seasons. She worked as a claims adjuster for an insurance company. There were times when she took the train to start the day's journey. My wife was genuinely fond of the job, although she didn't like the days of train travel. Until, inexplicably, she began to love the train, as if someone had pressed a button. When I questioned how this transformation came about, she shrugged and mentioned that she somehow began to see the experience differently. In the past, she had always felt discomfort due to crowding on the train, as she was claustrophobic and valued her personal space. She once claimed that someone had intentionally touched her butt, but had no proof of this. Her sudden enthusiasm for the train was strange and she started to withdraw when we did meaningful things together. My wife liked to solve Sudoku and crosswords with pen and paper. This was also her way of keeping a diary. Every night, before going to sleep, she would write in her diary. However, one night after an argument, I noticed that she started writing again. I wasn't comfortable with his obvious lack of interest in our joint activities. Before that, we had great face-to-face communication, but now she seemed to avoid looking at me. She denied what I perceived and vented angrily in her diary, something she was confident I would not read. However, the lack of communication between us persisted. She insisted that I was overreacting and being too harsh for making her feel bad about working too hard. Our life and relationship continued that way for 4 months. I felt like I was living with a roommate, not my wife. Though we still did things together, her mind seemed to be elsewhere. I tried talking to her about my feelings several times, but she responded with loud, irritated moans, avoiding listening to my concerns. She claimed that I was being overly critical and that my insistence on her work was causing a rift between us. She claimed that she was exhausted from work. Despite this, I couldn't ignore that something was wrong. She was unwilling to communicate, something she knew was critical in our relationship. The situation got worse, and she decided to leave for her father's house. She claimed it would only be for a few days, but a bad feeling came over me. I found her diary in our house and decided to read it. I started with the most recent entries and soon realized that she was expressing frustration with me. She was referring to times when she spent time with another individual, mentioning speed dating at a friend's house, and even listing the positives and negatives between that individual and me. She highlighted experiences where they shared train rides and games together. As I read this information, my heart sank. The listed pros and cons omitted the fact that I was paying off her mortgage, something that was crucial to our life together. She didn't mention my constant efforts to communicate and how patient I had been despite feeling like I was being put on the back burner. She also did not mention how I contributed more to household chores and that she was neglecting her responsibilities in this regard. She compared me to this other individual, stating that he surpassed her in many ways. This baffled me as I had been loyal and devoted during our 6 years together. I decided to act, changed the locks in the house and informed her father that she must not return. I explained the situation and he understood. Later, he was also disappointed with her attitude, stating that she had been raised to act in a respectful manner and that she should have turned to him in case of relationship problems. From the outside, it was clear that she represented a lady. The way he described the 6 years I was with her before meeting this individual and allowing him to clutter her mind. She called me shortly afterwards and asked if I was ready to restore normality. Since the problem between us stemmed from my guilt, I confessed to him that I wasn't ready and that, in fact, I never would be. I explained to her that things could not go back to their previous state as she had betrayed me. I heard the sound of the phone dropping as she picked it up again. She asked what the conversation was about, and I mentioned reading her diary, revealing that I took a photo of her notes about her personal getaways during office hours. I emailed this information to her company's human resources department, along with her employee identification number, explaining the situation and my confidence in its veracity, even though she didn't yet know that she was on the verge of losing her job. She assured me that she wasn't ready to lose me and that her diary was of no relevance as it was filled with untruths and daydreams written just to practice handwriting. However, I explained to her my unwillingness to forgive her for this and my belief that her notes were not meaningless. She claimed that she was just fantasizing and acting out, but when she attended my house, she realized that she would not succeed. She called her father, in a panic, venting about how I had cheated on her and needing to get back together. After a break, she started crying loudly and screaming in frustration, drawing the attention of neighbors. One of them even came to the yard to check her condition. Embarrassed, she returned to the car with her father, driving away. I understand that she spent that night in her shed, as I watched her from the window as she carried blankets. The next morning, she knocked on the door with renewed determination after discovering that she had been fired and needed to use the bathroom. Sarcastically, I questioned why she hadn't gone to the apartment to get help. She admitted to fears that this would cause her to move, scaring her lover away. She yearned to take advantage of the situation while she was still under the illusion that I was in the dark. I was relieved her plan didn't work out. I dared her to ask the lover directly, which I witnessed in the backyard with great discomfort. Initially, she questioned whether she could spend some time with him, and he declined. Amused, she explained that it was her only option, as she was being kicked out by her husband. However, he remained steadfast in her refusal, demonstrating determination and clarity of purpose. I empathize with you, husband, as your wife fell in love with a stranger she met during her work trip and developed a relationship behind her back. I believe that, as a husband, you had every right to read her diary, as anything she writes has relevance and truth in a transparent relationship. There shouldn't be secrets as serious as this one. I appreciate how you handled the situation, showing consideration and deliberate action to ensure your wife faced the consequences of her choices head-on. Surely, she would have continued to exploit you regardless of whether you forgave her or read her diary. You remained firm and indifferent to what she had to say. I hope she's doing well these days and that she's found a quiet place to call her own. Communication is crucial, and you deserve a happy relationship. I wish you all the best from here on out. Story 2. After 2 years of relationship, they had been in a relationship for a long time when she celebrated her 25th birthday. This event stood out as the longest-lasting relationship she has ever had, surpassing her many previous boyfriends. Wanting her party to have a theme of perpetual youth, she opted for a carnival, where some of her closest friends met them. Some of these friends brought their children, which made the narrator believe that the moment would be propitious to make a proposal. He had been busy looking at rings in his spare time, indicating his emotional investment. It is said that losing one's mind and common sense is a symptom of love, and they definitely had an immense amount of fun riding through the carnival, especially riding the gentle horse named Liam. As the friends left, their attention was drawn to a huge circus tent nearby, piquing their curiosity and prompting them to explore it. As they strolled, she revealed that she was considering starting riding lessons together, which would mark a new chapter in their journey together. Soon after, they found a well-groomed-looking cowboy beside a majestic white horse. Immediately, she addressed him, striking up a conversation as she introduced herself. The cowboy shared that he was a horse trainer and had brought his horses to a small volunteer event, while less grandiose than a circus, still captivated the children's attention and promoted his business. Her fascination with the cowboy was visible, something that made the narrator uncomfortable, increasing his desire to get out of there. He tried to suggest they leave, which momentarily saddened her. However, she quickly asked for the cowboy's business card to schedule future riding lessons at his cozy facility. The situation soon calmed down, resuming their normal routine, although he didn't hear from her about those classes until, finally, he decided to ask about it. It looked like she had practiced introducing herself, showing who she was. She mentioned that she would respond but confirmed that she would not. The insufficient amount of novice horses made it difficult to organize a pair lesson. After a pause, she added that she would schedule a class for the next day. She hesitantly expressed, gauging my reaction to her response, that even if I didn't ride a horse, she would still like me to accompany her. When she asked why, I replied that I didn't want to waste time on something she loved, just because I couldn't do the same. She was speechless for a moment and finally said she would just cancel as she wouldn't feel right letting me just watch. That struck me as odd, considering how flexible I was willing to be. It seemed that she didn't want me in the stable for some inexplicable reason. However, I chose to trust her and believe that she would indeed cancel the class. She had never lied to me before, and if she really valued being with me, she wouldn't start lying or going behind my back. I decided that if she noticed anything suspicious, even if it was just the fact that she was taking riding lessons with someone, I would end the relationship. However, it turned out that she was already secretly attending classes. She started attending these classes right after Carnival, despite coming to my house regularly. Although she smelled clean and was fresh when she came, I saw no signs of her involvement with horses. However, one day she arrived later than usual, wearing a jacket I had never seen before. That jacket smelled like a horse and even had horse hair on it, something I didn't immediately notice because she acted weird as soon as she walked in. She explained her delay with a flat tire and waiting for roadside assistance. I said she could have called me, but she claimed she didn't know how to change a tire, which seemed like an excuse to avoid my help. However, later I found out that it was not roadside assistance that helped her. Later, when she was exhausted and already in bed, I saw her phone line and, when I looked, I noticed messages from the individual identified as AP, which was the same name as the riding instructor. The message said he had a great time and complimented her in bed. I was shocked by what I saw. It seemed almost impossible that he'd sent exactly the message I needed to confirm my suspicions. I decided to call the AP using the card I found in her jacket. I thanked him for helping with the flat tire, leaving him confused as to how I knew about it. I asked him if he broke up with my girlfriend via text, but he hung up on me. Then he sent another message to her phone, saying that the flame between them had damaged their relationship and she shouldn't go back to school. That night, while she was sleeping, I packed up all of her things from my house and put them in bags. When she woke up and started frantically looking for her phone, I confronted her and handed the phone back to her, asking her to get her stuff and get out of my house. She was shocked but finally got her things and left. She never came back to my house. I learned later that she had problems with her roommate and they even went to court to resolve the housing situation. In the end, she returned to her foster mother's house. This was the story of how our promising relationship came to a painful end due to my ex-girlfriend's selfish and deceitful actions. She wasn't willing to mature or face the consequences of her actions. However, I learned from this experience that it is important to have the maturity to recognize when a relationship is not healthy and that it is better to move on, even if it is painful. Hey, did you like today's video? Don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video.